Hello and welcome to Reading with Mo. Today we are going to be having a collective book haul. I think I haven't really hauled any books since last October in 2020, so this is going to be an accumulation of books that I've purchased slash also have had sent to me over the past 3 months or so. Some of these also were some pre-orders that I had ordered earlier in 2020 that finally came in. There's a lot of really beautiful books in here. Some of them I have read already and some of them I haven't. I'm not going to be talking about them in any particular order. I was really too lazy to organize these into different categories. I just have them piled right here and we will go through them in random order. So the first one we have is the one, actually the first couple ones here I purchased because I wanted to own physical copies of. I read them last year and I have plans to hopefully reread them again in the future at some point. They're all books that I liked, that stuck with me, that I wanted to keep on my shelves. So the first one we have is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This one is a mystery thriller, kind of more on the literary side. This one I actually listened to an audiobook, but when I do eventually get around to rereading it, I wanted to read a physical copy of it. This one takes place in a Brooklyn neighborhood where everything isn't quite as it seems. Our main character Sydney sees her neighborhood rapidly changing, and at first she thinks it might be just putting it down to gentrification, but then it seems like something kind of fishy and weird might be going on and there might be more to the story. Then we have A Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. I'm so glad to own a physical copy of this book because this is the graphic novel adaptation. The art is by Danica Novgorodov or Novgorodov, I think. I'm not exactly sure on the pronunciation, but I really enjoyed this. I actually read it on my phone. I had the day it came out, I was able to get a copy from my library and I knew right away I wanted to own a physical copy. Here's just like an example of the artwork in style. I really enjoyed this graphic novel. We're following the story of a young boy and he is grappling with wanting to take revenge for the killing of his brother, and it kind of has a almost like magical realism element to it. But I don't want to give too much away, so I would just highly recommend to read this. Actually, I would recommend reading the physical book first and then the adaptation, but I mean, if you're just into graphic novels, then I would definitely recommend this. Then we have another book, Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I can't remember now. I think I listened to the audiobook version of this from my library and I knew I wanted to reread it eventually in the physical version. I was debating back and forth whether I was going to do like an honorable mentions video of books that I read in 2020, but then I decided I didn't want to, and I had already purchased this though. But I really feel like this is a weird book. Not everybody's going to like it, but I have heard a lot of people talking about it, so I wanted to read it myself and see what I felt about it. It takes place at this I think it was like a boarding school or private school, and it definitely fits like that dark academia vibe. And it's this house where you go to, and I think you're there at the school for 3 years. It's very secretive and weird things are kind of happening. A lot of the people who graduate from the school go on to have like highly prestigious like careers and jobs and stuff. And we're following our main character and her journey through the 3 years of this school. Then we have Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, another book that I originally listened to the audiobook of, and I really enjoyed the book, so I wanted to have a physical copy to reread eventually. And this one is a young adult book. It's kind of in the thriller genre, I would kind of put it in, or but also like hard-hitting contemporary. I don't know. I'm terrible at categorizing books. In this book, we're following a young woman and she is an aspiring singer. She ends up, through different events, being connected with this really famous R&B singer, and it goes on to journey their relationship, which is very problematic. He is not only very much older than her, but using kind of like his position of power to take advantage of her. And this book was just like very, very hard-hitting, and I want to read it again. It has a very it has a lot of things to say about the music industry itself and how people in power can get away with taking of those who are maybe more disadvantaged. And also there's some trigger warnings definitely in here for a lot of abuse and things. If you're someone who needs trigger warnings before going into books, then I would definitely look them up to get all of the full ones that are mentioned in this book. The next two books I purchased secondhand off of Depop. I've been selling a lot of my own books on there recently, and I came across this shop that was selling like old vintage books, so I don't really know too much about these books. I'll be honest with you guys, I bought these based purely solely off of the covers of them, and they don't have the summary or synopsis printed on them because they are pretty old books. So the first one is this beautiful copy, which I didn't even realize until I received it, is actually a Folio Society edition of Sybil or the Two Nations. This is by Benjamin Disraeli. I could probably like look them up maybe on Goodreads to see what they're about. So it looks like this one has to do with the squalor that was plaguing England's working class cities. And then the other one that I picked up was also a vintage book, and it's Lady Anne by Donald Henderson Clark. I love these old vintage editions of books, and I'm really excited to get to this one. This one I think actually does have a synopsis on the front of it. So it looks like we're following in this book the main character. Her name is Anne Steele, and she is born of New England stock, and it looks like she has a lot of stuff going on with a little bit of like her religious background, and she ends up marrying this guy who she's been in love with since her childhood, and sacrifices her instincts for pleasure and fine feathers to help make him a successful doctor in the New England community in which they're born. Something from her past ends up coming up that could mess everything up. Yeah, like I said, I bought these books mainly because I liked how they looked, but also they do sound like they could be interesting to read as well. So I'm really excited to have these on my shelves. I really am. Lately, I've been more into looking at like vintage and older editions of books, and I just am really glad to have both of these in my collection, and I think it's really cool. They both have the like sprayed edges just on one edge of the books on the top. Next, we have a couple of books that were sent to me from Booksparks, I believe it was, as part of their like fall reading campaign. And the first one was Malcom and Me by Robin Farmer. I just finished this one last week, and this is a young adult to almost like a middle grade novel. We're following a young 13-year-old girl. Her name's Roberta, and she's attending this Catholic school. She's Black herself, and she's experiencing a lot of racism and things through her school environment. And this book takes place, I think it was in the 70s, I want to say. So she's having a hard time dealing with her faith, also balancing it with the racism and stuff that is going on in the world and that she's experiencing. And then we also have Charming as a Verb by Ben Philippe. This is a young adult contemporary, not something I really read a bunch of, but I actually ended up listening to this one on audiobook. I'm not turning this into a wrap-up. I will be talking more about these books at the end of the month, but basically the gist of this one is kind of like a young adult contemporary romance. We're following two main characters. One of them, he is a dog walker for the kind of like upper scale people in his neighborhood. I think he lives in like upper scale Manhattan. Both of the main characters, they are attending this really elite private school. One of them ends up blackmailing the other to get something, and it ends up turning into developing into a friendship, maybe even more, between the two main characters. Next, we have another book that was sent to me, and this one is by Hannah Lee Kidder, who is also a booktuber here on YouTube, and she had reached out to me asking if I wanted to receive copies to read of her short story collection, and I have not gotten to it yet, which I'm so mad because it's not even that long. It's under 100 pages. Like, there's no reason why I should not have read this already. This is a short story collection leaning more towards like the darker, creepier side, I believe, of short stories, but I haven't read it yet to fully be able to tell you guys. But this is 12 short stories, and it's under 100 pages. I really have no excuse for having not gotten to this yet. And back in November, I picked up a book and read from Barnes & Noble. It was Mad and Bad, Real Heroines of the Regency by Bea Coach, and this is one that I mostly read a copy I had picked up from my library, but I decided I wanted to own a physical copy of this. And this is all about the Regency era and about stories and women that you might not be familiar with. I'm really not familiar with any of them because I'm not very familiar with the era as in general. So this one was very interesting to me and made me more interested in reading stuff kind of centered around that period of time, because I've read some like Jane Austen books, but other than that, like, I have no familiarity with what's going on during the Regency era. So it was kind of nice to get some more like backstories and little known stories of people who aren't as well talked about, like the people like Jane Austen from this era. So the next thing I want to show you guys was sent to me is not exactly a book, but it's more of like a magazine journal, and that is Contra. This is volume number 3, and this is called Ruin. They reached out to me a couple months ago by email asking if I wanted to check out their latest edition. And so this is a print journal and explores visual art and conflict, and it's run by a small group of journalists and artists. And as someone who is really into art and all that stuff around that community, I was definitely wanting to be able to support them, especially I know in this hard times, like magazines and journals are such a hard thing to promote right now, especially even before like the pandemic and everything. So this one, it just came, and I just love the quality of the book itself. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but it seems like there's some really cool articles and photography on different art and stuff, and I'm really into art magazines and stuff, so this was like right up my alley. So of course I had to say yes to a review copy of this, and I'll go ahead and leave the link down below if you guys want to check out their website and see more of the different editions and stuff that they have out right now. Then we have a reissue of an edition of a classic, and that is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. This one was sent to me by Penguin Random House. I'm hoping to get to this month, hopefully, but my time is very limited for the rest of this month. But this is the Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition. I haven't read anything by Virginia Woolf, actually. I think I might have read A Room of One's Own, but as far as just like regular novels, I haven't. I'm not even fully aware of what Mrs. Dalloway is about, but with classics, I don't really like to know too much going into them anyway. Then we have an arc of A Bride of the Sea by Iman Quota. And this one was sent to me by Tin House, and it's actually on sale on the 26th of this month, so I'm really hoping to have it read by then. We're following a couple who are expecting their first child, but also I think are having like some sort of marital problems. Divorce is on the table, and we're following a few different generations. It takes place over a few different continents. I believe it starts off in Cleveland, but the couple themselves are from Saudi Arabia, and the husband ends up going back to Saudi Arabia, and the wife and the daughter end up staying in America. Next, from Viking Books, I received The Push by Ashley O'Drain. This one is supposed to be, I believe it was like a psychological thriller slash drama about a family who, there's a woman and she has a baby and she believes that something is wrong with her child. Like they are not having the connection that she believes that a mother should have with her daughter, and she's not sure if it's all in her head. Her husband believes it's all in her head, so we don't know what's going on. I believe she does go on to have another kid, and the connection is completely different. And this is another book that I'm hoping to get to before the month ends, but I know there's only like a week, so I'm not going to be able to probably finish all the books that I'm wanting to. Then lastly, as part of the books that were sent to me, we have The Low Desert Gangster Stories by Todd Goldberg. This one was from Counterpoint Press. This one is a short story collection, and they're all in the theme of crime writing, and I think they all take place in this Gangsterland universe, which I haven't read those other books. I haven't read Gangsterland, but I believe that you can still follow along with these short stories if you haven't read the other books that are part of this series. Next, we have another book I picked up from Barnes & Noble, and I'm really excited to have this one, and that is Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. This is a signed first edition. I wasn't planning on purchasing it yet. Like I think I mentioned to you guys before, I was planning on reading it first from my library, but Angie Thomas was having like a live event for her book on the day that it was released, so I was able to buy a ticket for that, and with it also came with the signed copy, because I also had used one of my Audible credits, I think it was, to get a copy of the audiobook, because my plan was to read the whole book before the event that happened the next day. Oh yeah, it was the next day after the book was released, but I ended up getting through most of the audiobook, but I wasn't able to finish it before the event. But this one is the Hate You Give's kind of same universe as that one, but we're following the father of Star, who is the main character in The Hate You Give, and how he was growing up. I believe he's like around 16, 17 years old when the book takes place. And his name's Maverick, and we're following him as he becomes a teen dad, but also navigating being part of a gang and navigating being like a dad and also being in school at the same time and family. I really enjoyed this book, and I love Angie Thomas's writing. I just could not recommend her stuff more. Then lastly, we have all the rest of the books are probably the most exciting part of this haul, and they're all books I ordered and purchased from Waterstones. So the first two were pre-orders that I purchased last year that finally came. This one took a long time, and that one was One by One by Ruth Ware, which I'm actually currently reading right now. And this is a closed circle isolated mystery, and it's like the perfect day to be reading this because it's so gloomy outside, and it takes place in the Alps, and we're following this corporate retreat from all these workers that work at this company called Snoop, and they end up being stuck in their ski chalet when there's this avalanche that happens, and then one by one everybody starts going missing. I'm really enjoying this so far. It's exactly like what I was in the mood to read right now, so I'll definitely let you guys know my full thoughts once I finish it in my wrap up for the month. And then another one, I don't have the dust jacket on it, and I don't feel like looking for it because it's beautiful enough without it, and that is Hollowpox, which is the third book in the Trials of Morgan Crow series by Jessica Townsend. And I can't really say too much about this book because, like I said, it is the third book, and this is the Waterstones edition, which has the orange sprayed edges, which is cool. I don't think I showed you guys the other one for One by One by Ruth Ware. This one has a sprayed edge on this one as well, and this one's also signed. It has like these cool snowflakes printed on the edge. But back to Hollowpox. This is the third one. I feel like I'm gonna have to reread the first two books in the series before I continue on with this. But I believe there's gonna be more books in the series, so it's not like a super high priority right now. But I remember I did really enjoy it. I think the audiobooks for this series are good too. It's like a middle grade fantasy series. I can't really say too much. Like I said, this is the third installment in the series, so if you're into middle grade fantasy, it's definitely something that I would recommend. Which, that's not even a genre I really read from much, but I did really like that series. Next we have Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and this book is gorgeous. It's the what are these called, like the naked hardbacks or hardcovers, and the inside edges, the pages, so pretty. But this will be my second book I've read from this author. I read Americana a couple years ago. While I did enjoy Americana, I didn't like it as much as I had hoped to. Like, I really wanted it to be like a 5-star read and to really enjoy it, but I liked it enough to give another book by this author a try. So this one I decided to go with because it has really good ratings on Goodreads, and I know that there's, I believe there's an adaptation, like a movie adaptation I think out there somewhere. This one takes place in Nigeria in the 1960s, and we're following 3 different lives. We have Ugwu, who's a boy from a poor village, Olana, who was abandoned by her life of privilege in Lagos, and then Richard, who's a shy Englishman. And this is all taking place and centering around the Nigerian Civil War, which is not something I've really read too much about or have much knowledge of. So I'm really hoping that I do enjoy this one. Then we have another book that's kind of recently released, and it's a short story collection. It's Love and Color, Mythical Tales from Around the World, retold by Bolu Babalola. And I love the cover on this one. It's probably like the first thing that caught my eye when I seen this one. I haven't read a lot of short story collections or even stories in general that are retellings from other mythical tales. Like, I know if you read a lot of fantasy, a lot of those sometimes can have roots in different like mythical tales from around the world, but I think it'll be interesting to see how the author is able to do that through these short stories. Next, kind of along the same theme of mythological stories, we have Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes. I also own 1,000 Ships, I believe it is called, by her, but I haven't read that one yet. And this one is on women in the Greek myths. I have read a couple of historical fiction books kind of surrounding that topic, but never anything from like a nonfiction point of view. So it'll be good to have a little bit more of a background on these women who were part of the Greek myths. And then we have The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I read this one last year and I definitely wanted to own a physical copy of it. I really enjoyed this book. This one is kind of a reimagining or a spin-off of Passing by Nella Larson, which is a book about we're following two sisters from the South that are in America, and they're twins. One of them ends up passing for white, and the other one ends up staying like in their town they grew up in. And we're following kind of just the paths their lives take and how it not only affects them but also their kids eventually in the future. This is definitely a book I could see myself rereading again. I really would recommend Passing by Nella Larson too. They're both good good books I feel like on the topic and were very interesting, and I really enjoyed her writing in it as well. And then we have another book I already read but I wanted to own. Also, like, this is like the most beautiful edition I think probably of all the books that I've showed you guys in this haul, and that is Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. This is the sprayed edges. First off, like, I hope that this is like focusing because I think this is really cool. But to the book, I actually listened to this on audiobook, and I feel like I really want to go back in and read it physically to see how I completely feel about it. Like, I liked the book, but I feel like I just wasn't paying enough attention at the time. We're following this white couple, and they're on vacation in this Airbnb rental that they've rented outside of New York and with their family. And then this couple shows up randomly in the middle of the night. It's an older black couple, and they're claiming that this is their Airbnb. Something has gone wrong in the city. The power's out. They don't know what's going on, and they need somewhere to stay. So they're trying to stay there that night since it's their house. And it kind of just goes from there. We don't know, like, if we should trust them or not. They don't know whether to trust them, if something's really going on, like if something bigger is going on, or if these people are really being truthful or not. I liked this book. I kind of wanted a little bit more from it, but I do want to reread it again and see if I feel the same way. And then for the last two books are both historical fiction books. The first one is Hamnet. This is the Waterstones edition, and it's by Maggie O'Farrell. I've been seeing this book everywhere. It's following story of Shakespeare's son, I believe it was, Hamnet, who died when he was a very young kid. I haven't really looked too much more into it past there. I just know that this book has won a lot of awards and has a lot of buzz, so I want to see if this is something I will enjoy or not. And then lastly, we have Troy by Stephen Fry. This is the story of Troy, as that's very well known in Greek mythology, and the kidnapping of Helen and all of the other things that kind of went on around there. I'm not super familiar with Greek mythology, so I believe between this book, the Pandora's Jar, and I can't remember now if there's one other book kind of on this in this haul, I will hopefully have a little bit better of an understanding, because it's definitely a topic that I'm not really well informed on at all. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this beautiful book haul. If there's any of these books here that you think I should prioritize, let me know. I hope if you've made it this far that you've at least discovered a few books that you might be interested in checking out yourself in the future. But yeah, don't know if I'll do another book haul anytime soon. Like I said, in the beginning of this video, it's been about 3 months since the last time. I'm really trying to be selective of the books that I buy, especially since I don't really have a lot of room right now, and I'm trying to cut back on stuff, which I always am saying, I feel like, and never sticking with, but hopefully this year will be a little bit different. But anyway, thanks for watching this all the way through. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!